was a hot Saturday in the park, and it's a cold Monday in the park near home. Listening to Alex, this woman, I think she's American, New Right lady, talking to some British New Right guy. She does all the heterodox on the right thinking people, which is interesting. If you want to learn about something else besides the usual stuff. And a lot of these thinkers are pretty earnest and for real and interesting, and it makes me more open to some of their ideas. Having fun. He's talking about Thomas Sowell books now, which is somebody I know and have read, but I doubt many leftish folks read. Anyway, going on my walk through the park, enjoying a nice cool day. Yeah, they have a legitimate point of view. They really do. And they understand that there are systemic problems that nobody's addressing anywhere, in any area on the spectrum of politics at the moment. And even though a lot of it is kind of ideologically bent, or from an ideological perspective, I always want to ask people to think about the material side of things, the bits and the atoms and the energy and, the ecosystem, all these complex systems that are our base reality, besides consumerism and politics and all this stuff. The reality grid, the four-dimensional reality grid that we're all part and parcel of, is important to understand and maintain if we're going to have a civilization that we have now. Obviously, if we go back to the Bronze Age and billions of people die, that changes a lot of things, but we don't really want that, do we? People, the monarchists and the New Right people, they want to have their podcasts. So we're going to need the resources to build all this fancy equipment that we have to keep sharing our story. Otherwise, we're going to go back to living in villages in, Dunbar number communities, which I don't think anybody really wants, right? So on one hand, we do want to continue to grow scientifically and grow our knowledge and understanding and wisdom about the universe and ourselves and the world and our communities. It's all hard, like Daniel Schmachtenberger says, these cultural things. It's not an easy thing. It's hard. It's hard to move or invent cultures. But, no one side has all the answers, or even close to the answers, which is why it's important to listen to different perspectives. So the traditional side or the New Right side or whatever, if it's scientifically informed, if it's informed by engineering, technology, up-to-date understanding of how the universe works and all that kind of thing, then it's probably got some decent information in there, some quality and focus info, despite its packaging in a certain ideological bias, because you get disillusioned when you see all sides just making the same mistakes over and over again, despite the data, despite the information, despite the science. This thing is like shaking. Despite the science, the information, all that kind of stuff. it's like you never learn. Of course you never learn, because the powerful players are profits first players, and they want more control and more power. That's all that really gets them out of bed in the morning. I mean, if you have $1 billion, what are you working for? You tend to think you're pretty damn good, and then you tend to think that you can, be an agent for good. So you have this effective altruism trap, which, they're talking about, Moldbug talked about this morning and so on. But also this guest on this podcast mentioned that people like Curtis Yarvin are just gateways to a literature that you might not have been exposed to, because I'd read some of the books that I can imagine Curtis has read when I hear him speak or when I read his blog. And I'm thinking, these people were legitimate thinkers, and they have been ignored because academia doesn't really want to focus on them. These things happen, things come in and out of fashion, the whole, every decade you have some new trend that's coming along that has to become orthodox, and then it's overthrown by something else, So modernism, meta-modern now. Things seem to evolve, they change, they cyclically move around, and they rhyme like history rhymes. But if we don't understand all the principles, basically understand all the principles in physics, and understand energy, thermodynamics and other aspects of energy, understand what energy produced our current set of circumstances and how those circumstances are going to change when we can no longer rely on this particular kind of energy. So people used to talk about peak oil and never talk about climate change. Now they talk about climate change and they don't talk about peak oil. We're going to have so much oil and gas in the Arctic that it's going to be a bonanza for some corporations. But anyway, it's worth reading these people. I was a Christopher Hitchens fan, not a Peter Hitchens fan, because in the old days I thought Peter Hitchens was just a conservative and I didn't like conservatives. Then later you read Peter Hitchens, you go, he's not really that bad, I get what he's saying. And they're not actually trying to put up a conventional opposition to a conventional party that opposes their ideological point of view. They're trying to come up with something else because they don't have faith in either side anymore. And I understand that, Why would you? Now, Pinker would say everything's great. What are we complaining about? All we have to do is just get educated and we're all going to be fine. And I agree with getting educated, but the current economic thinking is just so wrong that we really have to take our blinders off and start to think about this stuff. I'm going to put a link to this podcast in the notes of this video, and I hope you'll listen to it regardless of your ideological point of view and think about it, because it's interesting. And we should challenge our assumptions. Just assuming that whatever we know now is absolutely correct is really kind of stupid, I hate to say. You have to constantly challenge your beliefs and your assumptions. If you don't have the right assumptions going into setting up or designing an experiment, for example, you're doomed to fail. You get a couple of assumptions wrong and you're screwed. So, challenge the assumptions, ask the right questions, and then try to find the answers in the right way so that you can confirm that those answers are indeed correct in a certain, set of conditions and circumstances and whatnot. Okay, I continue to walk. Have a wonderful week this week. Talk to you later. William T. out.